Welcome to the show. I'm Christopher Valentine, and I had Dr. Christian von Lahr on an earlier episode on nature spirits, and we had so much fun that I wanted him to come back and take us through the whole series of books. Christian, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Christopher, and of course we've had so much fun over the years even writing those books, because when we approached the subject, we had no experience either, just like a lot of people out there. So we went out and we tried it, and we started getting communications going on, and we were learning things, and this kept the story going, which is why we have that series of books. But what's really great is the nature spirits started sharing with us ways that we could experience them, talk with them, see them, and I think that's the book you're going to be focusing on today.
Yes, this is called Seeing and Sensing Gnomes. Hey, looky here. And on the cover we have our very dear and special Elf Carson. It's an exact likeness of Carson.
So with this book, we're not just going to show you how to see gnomes, although that's how it started, but we're going to try and show you how to see all the kinds of nature spirits.
So many people want to learn how to see them. So many people do see nature spirits, but one of the big things is people want to be able to see them. And this book in particular is filled with techniques from the nature spirits themselves.
Let's look at that cover though, because the last time we were speaking, we didn't actually mention what the elves look like.
So as I was saying, this is the nature spirits giving you methods on how to see them, and starting with elves, they look like Carson in that they usually will have a feather in their hat. Now their hats are usually, when you see them,
so like Robin Hood,
a Robin Hood type hat with the point in the front and a feather on the side. And they said when the feather's on the right side, there's scouts in the forest, and they're able to go wherever they want in the forest.
Now many people have said that I look like an elf, or I'm an elf king or whatever, but
You mean?
No, they have done that, but also elves, and that's what I wanted to point out. The elves are actually pretty tall and thin, and you often experience them where they're tall like birch trees or bamboo, tall reedy type plants, because they're shy. They're not as outgoing as the gnomes. And so when you're going to first experience an elf, you're probably just going to see that head poking out from the side of a tree, and when they see you, they'll actually run to another tree. And you'll get the giggling, you'll notice something's going on. So it's like, wow, something's going on here, it's kind of fun. But also, the elves tend to be not just where there are trees, but where there's water and where there's mountains, and when it all comes together.
Yes, where the mountains meet the oceans is an excellent place to look or to know that elves are near, or lakes in the mountain areas and mountain communities. Elves love that. Like Christian was saying, elves are the shyest of all the nature spirits, and they're among the tallest. They're usually 3 feet tall, very thin, and as Christian was saying, if you have bamboo in your garden, you can be sure that you have elves. That is one of their favorite
I have found in communicating with them, and we do a channeling process is what I do. I connect with the various nature spirits, and we just ask who wants to speak today, and we sit down and we record it verbatim. There's no prelude to this. They just start telling us what they want to say.
Well, what's really amazing is they'll usually give us an outline months in advance of who's going to talk on what. And they'll come up with these really interesting titles, like The Pirate Went Down with the Ship, and we're like, oh my gosh. Christian's a little nervous because he has no idea what the channel's going to be that day. But what is really fascinating is Christian will channel the nature spirits, and this can go on for hours. And what we do is we record it, and I'm typing it as he's doing it in the nature spirit's voice, no less. And it's amazing that we don't have to edit practically anything. We try not to touch one word because it's perfect.
That's because they do it in groups. On an individual basis, you might find that they speak like little children because they have not developed a sophisticated language or ability to speak in our tongue as we have. But they will get together, which is why the outline he mentioned, but I sort of remember it more like a few days or something in advance. But I don't know what they're going to speak on that particular day. So I prefer not to. I'd rather just, when you connect with them, just take what you get and record it, because it's going to come out good anyway. But they usually work together. They are the collectors of wisdom. The elves are the ones that collect all the wisdom of all the nature kingdoms. And so they'll get together and they'll give us the topic and they'll just start talking. And they have that whimsical little voice Christopher's mentioning. And we'll have to share that voice or stories later on, I'm sure.
Well, in this book, for example, we don't spell it out exactly as humans would spell it out. We do it in their words. Hey, looky here. And the reason for that is gnomes, for instance, have a little bit of a trouble with the letter R, and so you may notice R's missing from the words. That's because we're trying to keep it exactly as we heard it. As
This particular gnome Carson, Elf Carson, actually has a brother, or we call them running mates, because in the nature kingdom, they tend to move around in groups because they're not as fully individualized as we are. So they have these running mates. And so he has a running mate named Brighton. And I remember when they first came into the fold, so to speak.
Those were the first two elves.
The first two elves.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the reason he's on the cover is because he didn't want us to forget him. If you'll recall, Christopher, we took them out to eat because nature spirits love to eat. Now, elves are kind of particular because, they only want to eat bamboo, or they'll even eat the bamboo skewers and the wooden forks and things.
Elves are the true vegetarians of the nature spirit community. They only want to eat vegetables, fruits, and nuts. But when we went to a Chinese food restaurant, it's very funny. They started eating the chopsticks. We're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then we realized, oh, those were made out of bamboo too. So bamboo is one of their favorite
foods.
But
there was one time we were up in the hills, and I think all they had was like barbecue up there. Of course, the gnomes love it, and the leprechauns love the spice and the sauce of the wings and the barbecue ribs and things. But they're pretty particular. But we're leaving, and they have all these screen doors there because of flies and things. Oh. And they're new to the family, so I wasn't remembering them. So I left, and I let the screen door sort of slam behind me. We got in the SUV and drove off.
With hundreds of gnomes, all talking, and leprechauns and fairies. And, I said to Christian, I'm feeling that we're not all here.
Actually, as I recall, I heard one of them screaming.
That's after I said that. 2 minutes later, you started getting a message, and
I heard him crying. He goes, "Wee!" And I go, "Oh my gosh, we forgot the new elves." Okay, so we actually drove all the way back in the dark. The place was closed, and they were still there behind the screen door, waiting for us to open it. And that's an interesting characteristic of nature spirits. They have this tendency of following rules. So if there's a door or a screen door or it's shut, they just sort of stay there. Now, technically, they could walk right through it, but they have this, I don't know how to explain it, they like to follow these rules. And for example, when you're out walking with them, if the pavement is actually drawn in squares, you'll see them one in a square. Or in an elevator where they tile it, you'll see one gnome or nature person on every square. They tend to follow those rules. But he was very concerned and actually very distraught that we lost him. So what we ended up doing is buying this Christmas ornament that looked like a Santa Claus, that was a bell, and we sort of let him wear it around his neck. And so we always can hear that ringing if we ever happen to misplace him.
And he latches onto you wherever you go, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. But what's really interesting is Carson's job is photography and lenses and cameras and things like that. So even though he's very shy, he wants to be not forgotten. I think that's what he's all about.
It's kind of curious, two things. First of all, that all nature spirits want to work. They just love to do something. And you will always see them doing something around the house that you need. This is why we can go to Starbucks and there'll be Starbucks gnomes, or a Cheesecake Factory, and they're bringing the little food, like little waiters, and they'll have little cloths over their arms and whatever. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we were driving back from an expo this weekend, and we did something kind of rare. We went to a fast food restaurant. We were stopping at In-N-Out Burger, and we got the food, and they ask you, are you going to be eating in the car or to go? And we're like, we're going to eat it in the car. Well, not only did we get our box lunches, but the gnomes working at In-N-Out Burger brought our little children gnomes, the nature spirits, their own little kitty box lunches.
They call them gnome boxes, exactly. Yeah.
So there are gnomes and nature spirits working at all these different places, whether it's the hotels that we're staying at, the restaurants, the gas stations. And what I like to do is gift them and give them something back, because they take such good care of us and they make everything go so smoothly. And one of the things that you can do is copper pennies. And the gnomes call them coppers. So I like to leave pennies wherever I go for the nature spirits.
So it's interesting. One of the ways to start learning to see gnomes, leprechaun, elves, and fairies is to realize that they are everywhere. All those places you frequent, they're going to be. They love to be in the garden, that's true. In the mountains, that's true. But remember, they're blending into society now. So if you have a job, you're probably taking nature spirits with you of many kinds. So when you go out to eat lunch or dinner, or breakfast even, don't be surprised if along with the waiter you'll see a little elf or gnome carrying the tray of food for the other little people around you.
Awesome, you know.
And just to finish, and don't be surprised if they make you order strange things like orange juice. And you're going, geez, I never drink orange juice anymore. Or they'll want a salad or some special
Cheerios
food.
or cereal. Yeah, things like that. When we come back, I think we touched on something here. I want to talk about how gnomes travel with you when we come back.